What's going on, Tamers? It's me, guy waiting for his Jellymon cards to come in the mail so he can finally build the dang deck. Yeah, I opened up a bunch of stuff in the Rising Wind reboot booster that came out here in Japan last week, and I got some really good pulls. If you want to know more about that, take a look at the video on the channel. But today I want to actually focus on the EN side of the game, the folks watching out there who live in the West. So you folks are actually going to get access to BT11 pretty soon, I think, in the next 2 weeks or so. That set's coming out. I've gone through the meta, I've played through that meta already over here in Japan, and so I figured I would do a quick video on a couple of cards I think you guys should try to get your hands on when that set drops. The set does add a lot to pretty much every color, and no matter what kind of decks you normally run or what kind of decks you want to run in the future, I think there are a couple cards you should probably pick up and make sure you grab while that set's fresh. Now, starting with number 5 is going to be the Black-Green Metal Tyrannomon. So, when EX4 dropped, the Draconic Rawr set, I really feel like Chaos Dramon was a very underrated deck. And now, I played that deck a ton, and I realized how strong Digivolution was as a mechanic right now in the game as far as like disrupting your opponent's game plan is concerned. The only issue that I ran into with that deck was that whenever I got to my Chaos Dramon, it took time for me to actually kill my opponent because I could control the board all I wanted, but I had to like take the time to actually swing into the security and like whittle them down to actually win the game. That gave them tons of time to come back. Now, here's the thing. With this new Metal Tyrannomon card, you first of all have the ability to freeze your opponent's board if you're trying to get your Chaos Dramon, and you're taking a little bit more time than you thought you would. For every black and green tamer you've got out there, he's going to be able to freeze one of your opponent's Digimon, and they can't do anything the following turn. Additionally, what you really want here is the inheritance effect. So, before, Chaos Dramon had to swing into security. Now, he does not. So, when you get the Chaos Dramon up on board, or you get your Machine Dramon up on board, you can use this Metal Tyrannomon and just attack opponent's Digimon and be able to get rid of security ad hoc without having to worry about what the security check is, if it's an option, if it has a security effect or not. Doesn't even matter at that point. You take a card like this and then pair it with the red-black Metal Greymon, and you can attack any unsuspended Digimon you want, and then every time you do attack a Digimon, your opponent's going to drop a security. You basically get full board control without anything really stopping you. They could try to remove your Chaos Dramon, but then you just can like get rid of 2 sources, and you can use other option cards to replenish those sources. So it's really hard to get rid of him, and at that point, it's really hard for them to actually win the game when you have the Chaos Dramon on board with these 2 cards. So yeah, not having to worry about where your opponent's security are, being able to control the board and use that as a form of security destruction, and that combined with the freezing effect, this Metal Tyrannomon is just bonkers. Coming in at number 4 is technically not even a Digimon. This card, well, I guess technically it is a Digimon. I don't know. Anyway, next number 4 is going to be the blue Wanyamon Digi-Egg card. Now, I think right now, or up until this point, the blue Whoopamon Digi-Egg card has kind of been the fallback for a lot of blue decks as far as Digi-Eggs are concerned, right? Your opponent doesn't have a Digimon with a source under it, and you get to draw a card. Now, the problem with this is that now we're getting more Digicross into the game, we're getting more X-Antibody cards in the game, and these cards have the ability to either slot cards up under them, X-Antibody, or, in the case of Digicross, just the Digicross Digimon that are saved, or you can Digivolve them for 0 for another card. So you basically cut out the Whoopamon's effect, and it's really hard for you to get anything off of it anymore. So for this reason, Wanyamon, of having the really simple effect of if you have a tamer when you attack, you draw a card, puts the control back into your hands as far as your own destiny. So now, as long as you have a tamer, you're always going to draw. If your opponent has a Digimon, and it may or may not have a source, doesn't matter anymore, because you're not focused on what their board looks like, you're focused on what your board looks like. And even taking a look at the meta here in Japan, which is past BT11 at this point, Wanyamon is still seeing play in blue decks outside of just the V-Dramon deck that it was made for in BT11. Coming in at number 3 is actually one of my favorite cards from the entire set of BT11. That's going to be the purple Mervamon card. Now, you folks know me, I am a big fan of loop gaming, and Minervamon loop was really cool, but now once you pair it with Mervamon, it gives you a way to cash out on all that memory that you got with 3 free swings. For folks who don't know, Mervamon can actually be Digicross, reducing your cost from 11 to 8, so you can get a level 6 out for 8 cost, which honestly isn't that bad. The kicker here is, though, when you do Digicross and you put a Digimon card with Crossheart up under it, you can basically play 2 Digimon from your trash that either are Crossheart or have the Retaliation effect. All Digimon who have Retaliation on the board or a Crossheart also gain Rush and Blocker. That's so big. So now what you do is you get your Minervamon loop going, you loop till you have enough memory, you can just hard play a Mervamon, and then you can basically do 3 attacks outright. You know, Mervamon herself, and then plus the two Digimon she brings back. Keep in mind, always attack with Mervamon last. Always attack with Mervamon last. Please remember. If you are interested in the Minervamon loop deck for BT11, please check it out. I have a video on the channel, a full deck profile for it. And I've got not only all the cards that are included in the deck, but also how to perform the Minervamon loop combo, and then cashing out with Minervamon or other options you might want to go for during the course of the game. The cool thing is, even outside of just Minervamon loop, Minervamon finds a place in actual just normal Crossheart decks, because her ability allows you to Digicross from the trash. So if you trash something or one of your Digimon with Crossheart are in the trash, you don't have anything in your hand or on the field, then you can just use cards from the trash. So yeah, just a fantastic card all around. So be sure to grab a couple copies of this if you can. So if you're a Crossheart fan, then card number 2 is going to be right up your alley. That's going to be the red-yellow Shoutmon X3. I'm not going to lie, I thought that it was a tragedy that you folks over there in the East... Whoops, that's me. You folks over there in the West didn't get access to the full range or the full power of Crossheart when it first dropped, because 2 weeks after the set was released, the Shoutmon X4 card got restricted to 1 alongside... actually, it happened a little bit later in Japan. But, yeah, so you guys didn't get to experience an entire meta with Crossheart just dominating. And, yeah, I think that a lot of people who had invested really early on in Crossheart didn't really feel like they got, you know, the full payout of their investment. So the deck didn't really see a ton of play on the inside. But I will say that with the new Shoutmon X3 card, this does make up, I think, for the lack of having 4 copies of X4 in the deck. Now, it is a little bit slower, being able to disassemble itself at the beginning of the next turn rather than on the same turn at the end of the attack. But I still think this is still pretty good. Also, the searchability here, being able to grab 2 cards, is fantastic. So I'll just say that if you were excited about Crossheart originally and then got bummed out because of the restriction list update, then definitely try this card out and give the deck one more chance. And that brings us to our number 1 card to be on the lookout for in BT11. That is going to be, you probably guessed it at this point, the Greymon X Antibody from this set. Now this card is pretty wild. Black and red, first of all. It comes from a Greymon 4-0, as all X Antibody cards do. It is a little pricey if you are coming from like an Agumon at 3 cost, but even still, like, the price is definitely worth the payoff you're going to get afterward. Essentially, anytime you Digivolve into Metal Greymon after this guy, it's going to be a 2-cost Digivolve. If it's a black-red, then you can Digivolve for cost -2, and if it's just a red Digimon that's a Metal Greymon, then it's going to be cost -1. So, yeah, for every color you Digivolve into with a Digimon with Greymon in its name, you're going to reduce the cost by 1. So again, 2-cost Digivolve across the board. And then on top of that, now I thought that X Antibody as an archetype was really strong because it prevented source stripping. So you can no longer source strip cards because the X Antibody option cards prevented that from happening. And then the X Antibody cards themselves had like various effects that would stop them from being, you know, deleted or removed from the board, basically, like thrown to the hand or the deck. But this card basically wipes out the requirement of having to have 2 Digimon at the same level. So in some cases where you just can't Digivolve perfectly in the X Antibody deck, and you have to do like a level 3 to level 4, and then to level 4, level 5, and maybe miss out on some of the X Antibody cards, this Greymon here basically says if you just have an X Antibody option card and you stick it up on your Digimon, and at some point it would just be like removed from the board from an effect, just toss the X Antibody card to the bottom of your deck, and no harm, no foul. It gets to stay there, and your opponent has to just deal with it again. And considering how strong Black Hole Greymon X Antibody is in this set as an archetype, this card definitely increases the power level. Alright, so that's going to be my top 5 cards you want to get your hands on in the BT11 set. Again, it's going to be Metal Tyrannomon, got Wanyamon, Mervamon, the Shoutmon X3, as well as the Greymon X Antibody. Now, of course, I think there are more powerful cards in this set, but I think as far as utility goes and cards you're going to be able to use over the course of time rather than just in one deck, I think these 5 really touch on all those points for pretty much every color. Again, there are lots of other really strong decks, really fun decks also in this set. For example, I did a complete deck profile for the Galacticmon deck that got released in here. Of course, Black Hole Greymon X Antibody is an incredibly powerful card, and I think will definitely define the meta for BT11 going forward. Additionally, I mean, this set does include a ton of really cool cards. So if you think there's something that I missed, or you think there's a card that you would include on this list that I didn't, then let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.